This is low enough, though, that I would entertain it.
Man, I don't want to. This is an easy pass, gentlemen. I know we're getting 12-1 on this.
This is not a market that you should be investing in, certainly at this point in the offseason. Would like to get a little more value on it, but that's just not going to be the case with most of these season-long props. Regardless, I will play this one. If he's throwing enough interceptions early in the season, Jeff, to potentially lead the league, he's probably going to end up losing his job. Aaron Rodgers, over 23.5 passing touchdowns this season, plus 100. Play it or pass it.
I just don't trust the durability of Rodgers. I just think at this stage in his career, he's going to miss a game or two or three, and that makes it really hard for him to hit this number. If I knew he was going to play 17 games, I'd play it, but I'm going to pass it just because I doubt the durability.
Fells, let's move over to the Baltimore Ravens. Jeff, I'll ask this one to you. Lamar Jackson, over 750.5 rushing yards this season, minus 110. Play it or pass it.
He's hit this 6 straight seasons. I don't see any reason not to play it again. So I don't have to be the unhappy guy. For once, I'll say, yes, I'm going to play it.
All right, there we have it. Nice and simple. The addition of Derrick Henry did not seem to matter last season. 915 rushing yards for Lamar Jackson. I have to think he hits this if he stays healthy.
Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, over 3,900.5 passing yards at minus 110. Play it or pass it.
So first of all, if you're looking at essentially any of these player season-long prop markets, health is first and foremost, right? And Jared Goff has gone way over this number in each of the last 3 seasons. So I think you look at that number and you think, okay, this guy's basically averaging 4,500 plus yards over the last 3 years. Why is this all the way down at 3,900.5? Well, the reason is players get injured. Oftentimes, more than half of the league doesn't end up starting 17 games due to injury, due to guys losing their job, due to, you get to week 18 and you have something locked up. So that there are risks, I think, with betting the season-long player prop market. You're not going to find a ton of value there at minus 110. This is low enough, though, that I would entertain it, even if you are forecasting, some regression for this Lions offense post Ben Johnson. And I think that is likely, but we do have some wiggle room here with Jared Goff, who, again, went way over this number last season. All of the returning talent is really encouraging for Detroit. You have a really good tight end in Sam Laporta. You got Jamison Williams. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got a great pass catching back in Jahmyr Gibbs. So essentially, this is a bet on, will Jared Goff play 16 or 17 games? He's done a pretty good job, despite his frame of staying healthy throughout his career. He did have 3 seasons, by the way, even before arriving in Detroit, where he went over this number. So would like to get a little more value on it, but that's just not going to be the case with most of these season-long props. Regardless, I will play this one at minus 110.
Let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings. Starting off with essentially J.J. McCarthy's rookie season. Only played in 1 preseason game last year. It was a redshirt year. Not quite the same thing. Sometimes this benefits quarterbacks. J.J. McCarthy, over 24.5 passing touchdowns. Rodgers, I think, was at 23.5 as a point of comparison. Minus 105. Nick, play it or pass it?
So this, to me, really depends on how you view J.J. McCarthy. How ready do you think he will be for his debut as a starter? It's a guy who's never played in an NFL regular season game. He's only played in 1 preseason game last year, in which he suffered that knee injury. Now, we've seen over the years that there can be a big difference between, sitting out your rookie year and then coming in as opposed to being thrown to the wolves right away. But I basically consider J.J. McCarthy a rookie, right? I think there's a big difference between being injured your rookie year, not being able to get any reps during that time. Yeah, you could take things in, watching Sam Darnold from the sideline, but you're not getting reps in practice. You're not even getting some of those end of game reps. If it's a blowout situation, some of those guys will make a start or 2 at the end of the year. We didn't see any of that from J.J. McCarthy. So I essentially view him as a rookie. And since 2000, guys, only 5 rookies have thrown at least 25 touchdowns in a season. We had 2 last year, Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, the others being Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, and Russell Wilson. Again, obviously McCarthy is not a true rookie, so maybe you view him closer to a Jordan Love or a Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, guys who did sit out and then came in and had immediate success. I will say he's set up great. He might have the best quarterback coach in Kevin O'Connell in the NFL. He's got great weapons at his disposal, but I think this is one I would stay away from, especially at minus money.
Patrick Mahomes to have the most passing touchdowns at 12-1. Kelley, play it or pass it?
Man, I don't want to. This is an easy pass, gentlemen. I know we're getting 12-1 on this, but this is not as much about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is just the other state of offenses and quarterbacks in the NFL. Do I really think he's gonna be able to get more touchdown passes than a Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff? I mean, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, we've seen do it a couple years in a row. I just think there's too many candidates that I would have in front of him that kind of makes that unbettable for me. So it's going to be a pass.
Is there a price you'd prefer to pay? What would it take?
I'd get in on, I don't know if there's a number. I really don't know, Jeff. I mean, there's always a number. If you gave me 40-1, sure, I'd sprinkle a little on there. But it's that number of quarterbacks that I have ahead of him that I don't think I could really want to make that bet at all.
Bo Nix to score 8+ rushing touchdowns in the regular season. You get an 11-1 price. Play it or pass it.
This one, the price is a little bit more fair here, I suppose. But, Bo Nix ran for only 4 touchdowns a year ago. The last one of those, by the way, came in week 8. So I think we saw the Broncos, go into preservation mode, as you often do with quarterbacks who move around. We even saw that in Washington with Jaden Daniels. You look at his splits in terms of carries early in the season versus as the year went along. I think the exception, of course, is quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, the only two who went over this number last year. When you have that kind of size, when you have that kind of physicality, you're not as concerned about injury. But I don't know that the Denver Broncos necessarily want to be putting Bo Nix in situations where he's getting to 8 rushing touchdowns. I think the wear and tear factor is too much of a risk. So I know we're kind of jacking this one up at 11-1. Again, it's a reasonably fair price, but unless there's a barrage of quarterback sneaks and you just kind of get lucky in terms of that situational factor, I don't really see Bo Nix getting anywhere close to this. I think, if you're looking at this from a fantasy perspective, if he just gets to 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns, you're totally fine with that.
Justin Herbert to have 25+ passing touchdowns, plus 150, play it or pass it.
I'm going to go play here, guys. I'm going to go play on this one, 25 plus and plus 150. He's just got to get to 25 passing touchdowns. It's not a lot to ask in today's NFL. He didn't get there the past 2 years. One of those years he was hurt. I understand that. I've got questions about the receivers, but if I like this Chargers team, this is the year Justin Herbert's got to come through. Got to come through big time. I think 25 is a low enough bar for us to ask him to get to. This is a play for me on Herbert, 25 plus passing touchdowns.
Jaden Daniels to lead the NFC East in passing yards this season. Getting this one at plus 250. Dak Prescott, your favorite, at minus 110. Play it or pass it on Daniels?
I'll play it. I'm all in on Jaden Daniels this year. 3,500 plus yards last season. He's got a better offensive line. He's got better weapons this year. You probably do need Dak to miss a game or two, but that's not like that's inconceivable. At plus 250, I can definitely buy into this. I think we see him eclipse 4,000 yards passing.
Baker Mayfield to have the most interceptions thrown, 10-1. Play it or pass it.
This is an interesting one. Baker did lead the NFL last season with 16. Actually was tied with Kirk Cousins, who also threw 16 picks. Baker ranked 5th in the NFL in total pass attempts. Everyone who ranked ahead of Baker Mayfield in terms of interception percentage is either out of the league or clearly no longer a full-time starter. Anthony Richardson would be the one possible exception if he does win and hold that job for Indianapolis, but I would not really bet Anthony Richardson in this market because I think if he's throwing enough interceptions early in the season, Jeff, to potentially lead the league, he's probably going to end up losing his job. So there's a reason that he's way down the board at 35-1. I think in terms of other viable candidates, you're looking at Geno Smith, who threw 13 picks last year, Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. They were close behind at 12. Look, I don't mind Baker Mayfield at 10-1. I think there's enough value here that I would play this, but I'd also look at Sam Darnold, who's 10-1. I would look at Michael Penix at 15-1. I'm high on the Falcons. I'm high on Michael Penix, but we still have a pretty small sample as far as he's concerned. Wouldn't be shocked, if he encountered some bumps along the way. And then I think you have to look at Jared Goff at 20-1, given the price, given the fact that we could see some changes. We could see a step back for this offense with no Ben Johnson. The other name that really stuck out to me, Jeff, is Tyler Shuck at 17-1. Now, in terms of interception percentage, I think there's a good chance that Tyler Shuck could be among the league leaders, but it's similar concern with Anthony Richardson when it comes to Shuck is that if he's throwing a ton of picks early in the season, maybe the Saints just pivot over to Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I think that's why, the least amount of job security makes it hard for that there. You really have to put in the work early to be able to build up a big lead and then interception lead and hang on. So yeah, I think that's a tricky one to bet him at least.
We're looking at CJ Stroud. We talked about this being a potential bounce back season for him in year 3. CJ Stroud to lead the division in passing touchdowns at plus 155. Are you playing this?
Yeah, I think I am actually. We talked about how, from a fantasy perspective, that he's underrated. He's going at QB 17. It really comes down to this is either going to be CJ Stroud or it's going to be Trevor Lawrence. And, in both cases, there were, I'm sure you could throw in something there for looking at Cam Ward, because he's likely to be the starter all season long. The Colts, they're over there. We're trying to figure out which of the two quarterbacks. So we're just going to dismiss them. So it's a 3-way bet. So if you think of it that way, we're kind of narrowing it down pretty decently. You're getting pretty decent odds, plus 155. I think the Texans bounce back, have a better offensive offseason than they had last year. Yeah, I'm in on this one there. I'm going to play it.
Let's go over to the Indianapolis Colts, Jeff. Looking at Anthony Richardson to lead the team, not the division, just to lead the Colts in passing yards this season at plus 125.
Yeah, this is kind of gross. It's an either or, and my God, what's it going to be, like 1,100 versus 1,050, something like that. I was looking around for individual player futures. We popped up the RotoWire futures page there for player props and things of that nature. No sportsbook is issuing anything for either Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones right now. So it's if you're looking for Vegas's guidance, you're not going to get it. I think I'm going to pass this one here. Richardson's unlikely to begin the year as the starter. You and I both agree that he should be at some point. They owe it to themselves to at least give this one more year. Otherwise, it's just a huge, massive, ultimate failure. But I can't get there at plus 125.
Yeah, for a point of reference, if you're looking at the quarterback to lead the division in passing yards, we said Anthony Richardson is 50-1, Daniel Jones is 20-1. So the expectation, at least in the betting market, is that this will not be the case for Anthony Richardson. And look, if you're betting anything with Anthony Richardson right now, I'm just going to be frank with you, just call the number. Just call the number. This is not a market that you should be investing in, certainly at this point in the offseason.
Trevor Lawrence to have 30-plus passing teams, plus 550. Player to pass it.
30-plus passing touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence this season. I think a pretty reasonable price at plus 550, when you do the implied likelihood that this happens. But this is one that I'm still probably passing on, Jeff. We haven't really seen Trevor Lawrence approach anything close to this so far in his career, even if you look at it on a per-game basis. He is a guy that has missed plenty of time as well with a variety of injuries, so you do always worry about that with Trevor Lawrence. We, of course, saw way too much Mac Jones under center last season for the Jaguars, but only 5 quarterbacks reached 30-plus touchdowns last season, and guys like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, and Justin Herbert all came up short. Like you're telling me that group of 4 didn't get to 30 last season. It's hard for me to imagine Trevor Lawrence getting there this season. There's just so much projecting that we're doing right now with this Jaguars offense. And look, like I said, I am optimistic that they can hit the gas with Liam Cohen now as the head man. But outside of Brian Thomas Jr., I still have some concerns about this pass catching group. I am much lower than market on Travis Hunter as far as what his impact will be as a receiver in year one. De'Ami Brown, fine, I guess, as your third option, but there's not a ton of depth behind him. You got someone like Parker Washington just hanging around. They also parted ways with arguably their best red zone target last year in Evan Ingram, a guy who'd been really productive for them over the last few seasons. They're going to be asking a lot of Brenton Strange, who I do think is a nice fantasy value at the end of drafts at tight end. But again, a lot of projecting that we're doing with this Jaguars team. I want to see it before I officially buy in. Kyler Murray over 475.5 rushing yards, minus 110. Play it or pass it?
It would be a play it if you could tell me he played, 12 plus games, but it's just so injury based that this is kind of a tough one. But I'll say play it. He said that this offseason he wants to run more next year. We'll see if we think there is some James Conner regression a little bit. Maybe they have to rely on Kyler's legs a little bit more. So I'll say play it, go over the 475.5.